My Sinister Harry Potter crossover short story, Harry Potter and the Babylonian Deity. Chapter 7, Sleepless and Little Winging. Year 1996. The day Aunt Marge arrived, Harry had gotten into trouble again. Aunt Petunia had been called to meet with Harry's teacher. Harry had been reprimanded several times at home and at school for falling asleep when he was supposed to be doing something else. However, his teacher had gotten upset by his drawing. They were supposed to paint a picture representing one of the tales of Aesop's fables. Harry thought that was what he was doing. He thought he had done the assignment and he had handed it in. His teacher called him up later and handed him back his paper, asking him the meaning of it. When he looked at it, he was going to tell her at first that it wasn't his drawing, except he recognized the drawing of Emma burying her family in the snow. When asked to explain himself, he couldn't think of anything to say. Aunt Petunia had chewed him out on the way home, much to Dudley's delight. Harry dreaded arriving home, knowing full well that his punishment would be much worse with Aunt Marge there. Harry glumly entered the house and tried to make his way to his cupboard. "Boy, where are your manners?" Uncle Vernon bellowed. "Come here and greet my sister properly." Harry walked into the room without looking up. "Hello, Aunt Marge. I hope you had a good trip." Suddenly he thought, "I wish you would have a good trip down the stairs." A little dog started barking at Harry and growling as if sensing his thoughts. It was Marge's dog Ripper, who always traveled with her. Ripper never liked Harry and often growled at him, but this time he seemed to be barking with particular animosity. "Ripper, calm down," Aunt Marge tried to soothe her animal, then glared at Harry like it was his fault. "They can always sense a bad apple." Suddenly Ripper jumped out of her lap and started charging at Harry. For such a small dog, he seemed to suddenly have very large teeth. Frightened, Harry ran towards the back door. It wasn't open. He unlocked it, but the delay caused Ripper to seize his ankle. Harry cried out in pain, kicking the dog, who yelped. "What have you done to my poor Ripper, you scoundrel?" Aunt Marge roared as she chased after her dog. Uncle Vernon roared Harry's name. Harry managed to unlock the door and fled to the backyard. Ripper managed to follow before the door snapped closed again. Panicking, Harry climbed up a tree. Ripper looked up at him, growling and barking in frustration. Aunt Marge, Aunt Petunia, Uncle Vernon, and Dudley came out and looked up, seeing Harry up in the tree. They all laughed. Aunt Marge tried to get Ripper to come inside, but he was determined to stand at the foot of the tree, hoping Harry would be foolish enough to come down. "I think Ripper thinks the boy needs a time out," Aunt Marge replied, guffawing. "I agree," Uncle Vernon smiled nastily. "Let him stay up there." The three adults went out inside. Dudley remained for a while to throw stones at Harry. One of them was quite large and smacked him in the head. Harry's head spun and he nearly fell out of the tree. Blood trickled from the injury. He tried to protect himself as much as he could. He sobbed as another rock hit him in the shoulder. Softly he cried, "Please, can't someone help me?" Suddenly Aunt Petunia called out, "Duddums, I'm serving cake. Do you want some?" Dudley, who had a rock that was so heavy he had to carry it with both hands, dropped it. He liked tormenting Harry, but fortunately for the boy up in the tree, he liked cake more. Now only Ripper remained at the foot of the tree, but as Harry examined his situation, he saw no way to safely get down. His ankle hurt, and he saw blood was dripping from his sock. His only hope was that Aunt Marge would call Ripper off eventually, but she didn't seem inclined to do that any time soon. His throat hurt. He was thirsty. Everywhere that Dudley had hit him with rocks was hurting. He didn't doubt he was going to have some bad bruises in the morning. The blood trickling from his head and ankle tickled him. The air felt heavy and hot. His clothes became damp with perspiration. He shifted uncomfortably on the tree limb he was sitting on. His butt was getting numb. Still, Ripper remained vigilant and seemed in no hurry to abandon his post. Harry wished the neighbor's cat would come out and distract Ripper, but though the cat came out every day, today it seemed to decide to stay inside. Aunt Petunia was cooking dinner, and the scent was making Harry's stomach growl. Morosely, he realized that it was unlikely he would be sharing any of it. He went between wanting them to call off Ripper so he could get down to not wanting to come down from the tree and face the punishment that no doubt awaited. Suddenly, another need became more pressing. He had to use the bathroom. He tried pressing his legs together, then gripping himself in a way that Aunt Petunia would have smacked him for, but finally the urge was too much. A wet stain spread on his lap as the yellow liquid dripped from his pant legs. Harry was humiliated, and this would only make matters worse for him. Ripper sniffed some of the liquid that fell to the ground, then renewed his barking and growling, as if he were saying, "You've soiled yourself, you disgusting, naughty boy." The light faded. "Are they going to leave me up here all night?" Harry wondered unhappily. He was afraid of going inside, but he was just becoming so uncomfortable. Yes, yet he was cheered by the night. Soon his friends would come. Though Harry's sleep was being destroyed, he looked forward to seeing the ghost kids. Each night he would see the kids he had met previously, but there would be a new kid who would present him with their film. The films were gradually getting scarier and gorier, and yet Harry couldn't stop himself from watching them. They would usually watch 2 or 3 a night, though one of them would usually be a rerun that Harry asked to see again. Emma told Harry that Mr. Boogie was really pleased. Harry had seen flashes of Mr. Boogie. He would sometimes appear at the end of a hallway, or Harry would catch a glimpse of him out the window or in a mirror. He sometimes even saw him at school. Mr. Boogie never spoke to Harry or approached him. At first, Harry was glad of this. Mr. Boogie scared him a little. As time went on, though, Harry was getting more used to him, more curious, and he almost wished Mr. Boogie would talk to him. "Does he talk?" Harry asked the kids once. "He doesn't look like he has a mouth." "It's hard to explain," a little girl named Consuela said. "It isn't like regular talking. He shows us pictures in our heads of what he wants us to do. We know what he wants by the pictures or the feelings he projects into our minds." Harry had seen Consuelo's movie last night. She had dispatched her family by having them get gored by a bull. Consuelo told him she thought it was very befitting to make a movie of the murder. Her father used to make movies of Consuela. She didn't like doing those movies. He forced her to remove her clothes and do disgusting things with men he invited over, and one time he even made her do things with the family dog. The movies Harry watched were getting more violent, and the stories the kids told about their lives were getting just as terrible. Kids like Consuela almost made Harry feel fortunate, realizing that the Dursleys could be much worse. Harry couldn't stop thinking about the movies. It was one of the reasons why he wasn't sleeping well. He wasn't exactly having nightmares, but it was like every anxiety and fear he had was surfacing in his sleep. The dreams were often the same. He would be in a room, his room, and a pretty woman with red hair would be talking to him. Then there was a flash of green light and his head would hurt. Then he would be crying, but the pretty red-haired woman would be lying on the floor unresponsive. Then he would get the sensation that he was flying, and he would actually feel safe. There was a large, burly man with a beard who smelled like a pet store, but Harry didn't find the odor unpleasant. Next, there were people, including the burly man, staring down at him. He felt something cold and hard under him, and then they left. He wanted to call out to them, "No, please don't leave me," but they didn't stop. They didn't even turn around. Then all his memories of his suffering at the hands of the Dursleys, Aunt Marge, and Dudley would replay. Harry would wake up feeling like he hadn't slept at all. Yet when the ghost kids came, he never told them to go away so he could get a night's rest. No matter how tired he felt during the day, suddenly he would feel very refreshed. The movies were disgusting Harry less. He was riveted by them. He kept watching them as if there was a hidden message in them he was trying to figure out. He also started seeing the beauty of how the murders were committed. Consuela, for instance, danced at the end of her movie, before she did the shh that all the kids did at the end of their movies. She danced well, but Harry noticed how the flecks of blood on the ground looked very much like the poppies that were the decorative print on her dress. It was like she was dancing surrounded by flowers. When he heard how the other kids were treated by their families, he didn't feel sorry for the people getting murdered. As time went on, he started agreeing with the sentiment that Emma had stated the first night he met her. It wasn't wrong to kill bad people. The world was better off without them. Harry still had his doubts whether he could actually go through with killing the Dursleys, but each night after he watched the movies, it seemed he felt more confident that he could do it. It wasn't just for revenge either. Harry wanted so much to be taken away from his life, and Mr. Boogie was offering to do that. Though he had worried about what Mr. Boogie was and what type of life he would lead with him initially, those fears were lessening. After all, the other children seemed fine and even stated they were happier with their new life. Harry wanted Mr. Boogie to like him and take him away. His greatest fear was that one night the children wouldn't show up. He listened with trepidation every night for the event cover to be thrown back, announcing Emma's arrival. The thought that they wouldn't come, that they'd change their mind, worried Harry. It wasn't just that it threatened his chances of being rescued. For the first time in his life, Harry had friends. He enjoyed their company. He became aware of just how hungry he had been for friendship. He couldn't lose it. Suddenly the air felt cooler. Harry felt something was different, and he realized that he couldn't hear the crickets anymore. They had stopped. Ripper, who sensed something was different too, sniffed the air with a puzzled growl. Something in the bushes moved. Ripper seemed torn between not wanting to leave his post and wanting to investigate the rustling. The bush rustled again, and this decided Ripper. He trotted over to the bush and sniffed, then started barking. His barking seemed to get more alarmed, and he took a few steps back. Suddenly something grabbed him so quickly Ripper didn't even have a chance to yelp. Harry watched the bush, which became still. Ripper didn't come out. He waited for a few minutes more, then cautiously he started coming down the tree. He did so with difficulty. The ankle Ripper had bitten was swollen, and his body was sore from the rocks Dudley had thrown and being forced to remain in the tree for so long. Ripper still did not come out of the bush, and Harry knew he wouldn't. He took painful steps towards the bush, his curiosity getting the better of him. Suddenly the back door opened, and Aunt Marge called out, "Ripper, here boy, Mummy has some yummy scraps." She frowned when she saw Harry. "What are you doing?" she asked accusingly. "Where is Ripper?" Harry was about to point to the bush, but then thought better of it, not knowing what she would find. Quickly he explained, "The neighbor's cat came out and he chased it. I think he went into their yard. There's a hole in the fence over there." Harry didn't think Ripper could fit his fat little body through the hole, but apparently Aunt Marge did think so. She bent down and called to her dog. Harry was surprised she believed his explanation and didn't accuse him of doing something to her dog. Of course, eventually she probably would, because Harry suspected that Ripper was not going to show up. Not alive, anyway. At the moment, though, she and Uncle Vernon were rather drunk, and their animosity toward Harry had mellowed slightly with drink. "It's late, boy," Uncle Vernon replied, though not as sharply as usual. "Go to bed. You won't have dinner tonight, and tomorrow we'll talk about your choice in artistic themes." Harry gulped and straightway went inside the house. Thankfully, Harry's pants had dried, and there didn't seem to be a lingering smell. Aunt Petunia snapped the cupboard shut and locked it, shutting the vent.